Back in the visitation room of the academy, a woman with long dark hair was playfully pinching and stretching Vikir's cheeks, exclaiming with a huge smile how much she'd missed her little brother. While Vikir endured it with a pained, annoyed look, his friends Sancho, Tutor, and Piggy watched from a distance, completely stunned. Tutor muttered that it was unbelievable that Vikir even had a family, and Piggy quietly told him that what he said was rude. Tutor mentioned that Vikir has never talked about his family or himself, so what's happening in front of him was really shocking to the blonde hero. But still, Piggy wondered why this would be shocking to the blonde hero. Watching the siblings mingle with one another, Tutor notices something. The woman kept up her overly affectionate act, leaning in far too close to Vikir's face and asking if they should share a kiss after being apart for so long. To Vikir's friends, he seemed really close to her sister. Once Vikir's friends finally left, the mood in the room changed completely. Vikir and the woman sat alone at a table. The cute sibling act was over. Vicky stared at the tired lady in front of him. He talked about how the message this time around had a lot of important details, so he knew she would come here personally. But the method used is troublesome for him. Revealing that Cindy was the one acting and disguised as his so-called sister with a red bump on her forehead. Cindy grumbled that no brother in the world would ever flick his visiting older sister just for showing a little affection during her visit. However, she quickly added that it had been necessary to overact that much to remove any suspicion others might have had about their relationship. She then sat back with her legs crossed, looking arrogant, and said he should at least be grateful that his pretty sister came to visit him. Vikir told her to cut to the chase. His expression hardened as he directly asked how the trade with the forest natives. Wondering if it went well. The woman's attitude immediately shifted into something professional. She reported that things were going smoothly and that they had already completed 3 large-scale deals. Vikir simply replied that it was good news. After their business discussion, Vikir's gaze sharpened as he prepared another question. With his red eye glowing, he asked Cindy if there was any news about the whereabouts of the Balak tribe. Cindy closed her eyes and sadly shook her head, telling him they still hadn't been able to find them. She explained that the tribe had always appeared for every trade before, but now they'd vanished completely. She assured Vikir that they were actively tracking them. He listened in silence. Vikir considered this information, convinced that something must have happened to the Balak tribe. An image of Aquila appeared in his mind. He knew that the tribe had her. An incredible leader, he probably didn't need to worry too much, for now. Changing the subject, Cindy then presented a large bag to Vikir. She explained that, just as he'd requested, the bag contained enough military funds but is still portable for him to carry around with. When it was opened, the bag was revealed to be overflowing with shining gold coins. With that business done, Cindy's expression turned dark. She told Vikir there was one last thing he needed to know. Hands clasped and her own red eyes glowing with intensity, Cindy delivered the critical information. The bourgeois family's patriarch, Bartholomew Jew Bourgeois, is a demon. Upon hearing that Bartholomew Jew Bourgeois was the demon, Vikir clasped his hands and quietly processed the information. If they were trying to bring down the Quo Vadis family, one of the 7 great families of this empire, Vikir would expect the demon to be closely associated with the patriarch because of the large amount of funds being managed or the patriarch himself. Hearing this being confirmed is a heavy realization for the young bloodhound. Cindy went on, reminding Vikir that, as he knew, the bourgeois family was the wealthiest in the entire empire. She warned him that even if he wanted to approach them, they wouldn't give him a second glance because the money he had was simply pocket change to them. She offered to bring more funds if he needed them. But Vikir calmly said that this amount would be enough, as seed money. Confused, Cindy asked what he meant by seed money. Vikir explained that one couldn't simply make contact with the bourgeois family just by having a lot of money. They'll only look their way if you catch their attention with how you made your money. A sly grin spread across Vikir's face as he told her what he planned to do with the money. He revealed his target, the mock investment tournament, an event hosted by the bourgeois family themselves. Holding up a flyer for the competition, Vikir confidently declared his plan to use his knowledge to win the tournament. Hearing this, Cindy's face twisted in absolute shock, blue lightning crackling around her. She screamed that he was insane, shouting that his plan was nothing but a scam. The scene shifted to a large, grand building at night. Inside a dimly lit office, Professor Snape approaches a man with yellow hair who had summoned him. The one who had called him was a powerfully built man with long blonde hair, holding a large ornate sword. This was Winston Smith, the headmaster of Colosio Academy. Snape looked slightly surprised as his eyes fell upon the headmaster's weapon. He recognized it as Orwell, the Winter Sword, and noted that since the headmaster was still armed, he must have just arrived. Winston Smith was a man who rivals the patriarchs of the Iron-Blooded family, the Azure Spearman family, the mystical Archer family, and the renowned Mage family. The legendary sword warrior. Headmaster Smith smiled and motioned for Snape to take a seat, saying that his time off from his sabbatical had ended sooner than expected. Once they were seated, the headmaster got straight to the point, asking about the trouble he'd heard Professor Sadie had been causing in his absence. Snape's expression twisted into pure anger. He began listing her offenses, which he claimed were too many to even mention in full. He mentioned her poor work ethic, her habit of drinking during class, and even attacking students. Leaning forward in frustration, Snape declared that, to be frank, Sadie wasn't a professor at all, but a criminal who belonged in the notorious Lubelbach prison instead of teaching at the academy. The headmaster raised a hand to calm Snape down and told him not to be so harsh, saying that Lubelbach was a bit extreme. Though his own smile seemed a bit forced, he then gave some context for Sadie's behavior. He explained that she was the last descendant of Marquis Saad's family, a family that had been incredibly famous before the Empire's unification. The headmaster added that the previous Marquis Saad was the pillar of that family, in fact, currently imprisoned in Lubelbach. Headmaster Smith addressed Snape, saying he still believed there was a good side to everyone, and that this must also be true for Professor Sadie. Snape, clearly frustrated and thinking the headmaster was being naive, warned him that the final exams and parent observation class were fast approaching. He insisted that if Sadie caused problems again, as she had during the midterms, they would lose control. The headmaster's solution was simple. He instructed Snape to exclude her from any practical duties and to keep her out of the public eye as much as possible. Internally, Snape was fuming with frustration, realizing that the headmaster had no intention of even considering disciplinary action or dismissal for Sadie. Standing up stiffly, Snape reluctantly agrees to the headmaster's decision, saying that if that was what he wanted, then it shall be done. He then added that since there was nothing left to discuss, he would take his leave. Snape turned and walked out of the office, leaving Headmaster Smith sitting alone in the moonlight, thinking about the situation in silence. The scene shifted to a meeting of the new mock investment club called Oracle. Piggy rushed in excitedly, holding a large stack of papers, and reported to Dolores that he had gathered all the requested information on the personal details and recent activities of all the celebrities within the bourgeois family. His role was the supervisor of intel. Meanwhile, Sinclair stood proudly before a chalkboard, announcing that she had completed a perfect analysis of the schedule, system, and structure of the upcoming mock investment tournament. Her role was the administrative official. Standing at the head of the table, Dolores, the club's president, praised them both for their excellent work. A determined glint appeared in her eyes. The story flashed back to a secret meeting between Dolores and Vikir, who was disguised as the Night Hound, both of them stunned by the bag of gold coins on the table between them. Dolores asked where he could have possibly gotten so much money. Vikir reminded her that he'd mentioned having a very rich friend. He explained that their plan was to use this seed money to make more money, which would attract the attention of the renowned people within the bourgeois family. He told her that since it's impossible for him to enter the competition, it would be her role to grow this fortune and profit off of it. He assured her that he would instruct her later on the methods for making money. Vikir had one additional instruction for her. He told her to find 2 capable individuals who can be her administrators and perform other tasks. Returning to the present, Dolores looked at Piggy and Sinclair, the competent people the Night Hound requested for. The 2 people who surpassed countless other competitors. A wave of guilt and determination washed over Dolores. She clenched her fist, knowing that these 2 innocent students had no idea they were preparing for a battle against a demon. Though she had already put plans in place to protect them from the fallout, she resolved to keep them safe no matter what happened. Piggy then approached the table and asked a very practical question. He pointed out that since the mock investment tournament was just a simulation, he didn't understand why they needed real seed money. Leaning forward with a confident, almost mischievous smile, Dolores began to explain. She revealed that it was because they were going to be making real investments. The revelation left both Piggy and Sinclair utterly speechless. They shouted in shock. Dolores passionately declared their dual goal. Not only would they win the mock investment tournament, but they would also make a massive financial profit in the process. With a confident smile, she announced that she would take full responsibility for all losses. Though privately she knew that the Night Hound was the one truly taking the risk. Piggy and Sinclair huddled together, whispering nervously. Piggy worriedly asked if their vice president might actually be planning to scam them. But Sinclair quickly dismissed the idea, saying she didn't believe Dolores was that kind of person. After a moment, they turned back to Dolores with bright, trusting smiles. They declared that since she was so determined, they would follow her completely. They even admitted that the idea of using real money sounded much more exciting. Internally, Dolores was filled with gratitude for their unwavering trust. Feeling optimistic, Piggy suggested they should ask his friend Vikir to join them. Sinclair immediately agreed, pointing out that having Vikir on their team would be a huge help. The mention of Vikir's name caught Dolores completely off guard, causing a bead of sweat to trickle down her face as she became visibly flustered. Piggy explained that Vikir had recently shown a keen interest in economics, reading the newspaper every morning, and having recently taken an interest in economics. Even as a friend, he was still an emotionally supportive friend. After a moment of thought, Dolores turned away slightly and asked Piggy to pass a message to Vikir the next time he saw him, an invitation to join their club. While Piggy seemed a little hesitant, Sinclair was overjoyed, pumping her fists and cheering at the idea. Piggy then noticed something about Dolores's expression and remarked that it looked familiar. He recalled that she'd had the exact same look on her face when she'd come to their dorm looking for Vikir some time ago. As if prompted by that memory, Dolores turned and began walking away down a sunlit corridor. She told them to finish organizing the materials and then head home, explaining that she had something to take care of and was leaving ahead of them. Sinclair watched her go, a hint of concern in her eyes. As Dolores walked alone down the sunlit corridor, her mind was completely filled with thoughts of Vikir. She recalled all the times she had wanted to speak with him, but couldn't find the words. She remembered when he had asked to name the scholarship after Perry, and how she wished she could have talked with him about it, since he had been there for Perry's final moments. She also thought of the time he arm-wrestled Bakirage for her. She wanted to thank him for that. Thinking back, she recognized that there had been so many opportunities to have a real conversation with him, but she had failed to take any of them. She admitted to herself that whenever she stood in front of him, she became flustered and couldn't speak properly. Even when she was with the mysterious Night Hound, her thoughts would inevitably drift back to Vikir. Steeling her resolve, she wondered if today would finally be the day she could say what she needed to say. Her thoughts were interrupted when she found herself standing directly in front of Vikir. He looked surprised to see her and asked what was wrong. Taking a deep breath and looking down for a moment to gather her courage, Dolores began to speak his name. Then, with a blush on her cheeks and a look of pure determination in her eyes, she looked directly at him and announced loudly that she had something she needed to tell him.
Thanks for watching the latest part from the voice of Manhwa. Subscribe for more content and don't forget to comment below what you want to see in the future. Like and share for more.